They said he was done before he even started. 1 practice session. 3 completions out of 8 attempts. That's all it took for the entire NFL media machine to write off Shedeur Sanders as just another overhyped quarterback riding his father's coattails. The headlines screamed bust, the tweets flooded in with QB4 for a reason, and suddenly, a rookie who hadn't even played a single NFL snap was being buried alive by the very people who claim to evaluate talent for a living. But here's what they didn't tell you about those 8 throws. Here's the context they conveniently ignored. And here's why what happened just 24 hours later should terrify every team that passed on this kid in the draft. I'm about to show you how Shedeur Sanders didn't just bounce back from criticism, he obliterated it with surgical precision. And if you think you know this story, you're about to discover you've only heard half of it. What you're about to witness isn't just a comeback story. It's a masterclass in how narratives get manufactured, how context gets ignored, and how one young quarterback is rewriting the rules of what it means to handle pressure in the NFL spotlight. Today, we're diving deep into 7 critical elements that the mainstream media won't touch, the real story behind those day 1 numbers, how day 2's flawless performance exposed the bias, the elite intangibles that separate Shedeur from every other rookie, the glaring double standards in NFL coverage, why depth charts mean nothing when talent speaks this loudly, the inevitability of first-team reps, and why Shedeur's rise isn't just probable, it's unstoppable. If you're tired of surface-level analysis and clickbait headlines, stick around until the end because I'm giving away 4 Shedeur Sanders jerseys to viewers who make it through this entire breakdown. Let's expose the real story behind the headlines. Every statistic tells a story, but when that story gets twisted by agenda-driven media, the truth becomes the first casualty. Day 1's 3 for 8 completion rate became instant ammunition for skeptics who were already sharpening their knives, waiting for Shedeur Sanders to stumble. But here's what they didn't tell you, and what they deliberately chose to ignore because it didn't fit their predetermined narrative. Those 8 attempts weren't thrown to Pro Bowl receivers running crisp routes in perfect synchronization. They weren't delivered to veteran targets who've spent years mastering timing and chemistry with their quarterbacks. Instead, Shedeur was throwing to 4th-string receivers, players who were still learning the playbook, still figuring out route concepts, and still building the fundamental trust that separates NFL-caliber passing attacks from college scrimmages. Picture this scenario. You're evaluating a surgeon's skill, but instead of giving him experienced nurses and proper instruments, you surround him with medical students who don't know where the equipment is stored. Then, when the operation doesn't go perfectly, you declare him incompetent. That's exactly what happened to Shedeur on day 1. The receivers he was targeting were running incorrect routes on at least 3 of those incompletions. 2 more were clear drops where the ball hit receivers directly in their hands but bounced off because they weren't expecting the velocity and precision that Shedeur delivers. 1 was a deep ball where the receiver gave up on the route, assuming the coverage was too tight, while Shedeur had already identified the window and delivered a perfect strike. But context doesn't generate clicks. Nuance doesn't trend on Twitter. So instead of reporting the full story, the media machine did what it does best. It manufactured a crisis where none existed. Meanwhile, across the same practice field, veteran quarterbacks Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco were working with first-team receivers, established timing, and the benefit of doubt that comes with NFL experience. When they missed throws, it was dismissed as training camp rust or working out the kinks. But when a rookie quarterback, operating with backup players in an unfamiliar system, doesn't achieve perfection immediately, it becomes a character assassination. This isn't just about football, it's about how narratives get constructed in real time. The same media members who ignored the context of Shedeur's day 1 performance are the ones who will claim they always believed in him when he inevitably takes over as the starter. They create the crisis, then profit from the comeback story. But Shedeur Sanders didn't need their validation or their manufactured redemption arc. He had something far more powerful, the ability to let his performance do the talking. And on day 2, that performance spoke volumes. Less than 24 hours after the critics had written his obituary, Shedeur Sanders walked onto that same practice field and delivered a performance so flawless it should have rewritten every headline in America. Day 2 wasn't just about redemption, it was about revelation. It was the moment when anyone paying attention realized they were watching something special unfold in real time. 4 attempts, 4 completions, 0 margin for error, and 0 mistakes delivered. But the perfection of that stat line only tells part of the story. The real story lies in the degree of difficulty of those throws and the surgical precision with which Shedeur executed them. The first completion was a second-level out route that required Shedeur to sell play action convincingly, then deliver the ball over the middle with defenders keying on run action. The timing had to be perfect. Too early and the linebacker jumps the route. Too late and the safety closes the window. Shedeur threaded it with the precision of a veteran quarterback who's made that throw 1,000 times. The second throw was even more impressive. A deep cross-field strike that required him to identify the coverage pre-snap, recognize the receiver's leverage against 2 safeties, and deliver the ball to a spot where only his target could make the catch. The ball traveled 35 yards in the air and hit the receiver in perfect stride, splitting the safeties like they were standing still. The third completion showcased his mobility and arm talent simultaneously. Pressured off his back foot by a blitzing linebacker, Shedeur rolled right, kept his eyes downfield, and delivered a quick slant with perfect placement while defenders were bearing down on him. The throw had NFL velocity and accuracy that most quarterbacks can't achieve even from a clean pocket. The fourth and final completion was perhaps the most telling, a timing route that required Shedeur to trust his receiver would be in the right spot at the exact moment the ball arrived. No hesitation, no double clutch, just pure anticipation and execution. What made these throws even more remarkable was the rhythm and confidence with which Shedeur delivered them. There was no hitch in his release, no hesitation in his progressions. He processed coverages like a quarterback who'd been running this offense for years, not days. His footwork was textbook, his arm slot consistent, and his decision-making instantaneous. This wasn't luck or a hot streak, this was a demonstration of elite quarterback traits under pressure. When backed into a corner by unfair criticism, Shedeur didn't just respond, he dominated. He showed the poise, accuracy, and football IQ that separate franchise quarterbacks from career backups. But here's what should concern every NFL fan, that flawless performance barely registered in the national media. The same outlets that had trumpeted his day 1 struggles suddenly went silent when he delivered perfection. Which brings us to the intangibles that make Shedeur special, traits that can't be manufactured or taught. You can teach mechanics, you can coach footwork, but you cannot manufacture the elite intangibles that separate good quarterbacks from great ones, and Shedeur Sanders possesses them in abundance. In the NFL, physical tools only get you so far. The graveyard of professional football is littered with quarterbacks who had cannon arms and perfect spirals but lacked the mental makeup to succeed at the highest level. What separates Shedeur isn't just his ability to throw the football, it's how he thinks, leads, and responds under pressure. Leadership isn't something you can measure with a stopwatch or radar gun, but it's immediately recognizable when you see it. On day 2, despite being listed as QB4 on the depth chart, Shedeur carried himself like he owned the huddle. He was the first player to the chalkboard during film sessions, pointing out route adjustments to receivers who had more NFL experience than him. When teammates made mistakes, he offered constructive feedback without condescension. When they succeeded, he was the first to celebrate their achievements. Even the defensive backs noticed his presence. After practice, multiple defenders commented on how Shedeur was always talking, always locked in. That kind of respect doesn't come from draft position or family name. It's earned through consistent demonstration of football intelligence and genuine care for team success. His football IQ manifests in subtle ways that casual observers might miss, but coaches notice immediately. Watch how he scans the field during pre-snap reads. His eyes move with purpose, identifying leverage, counting defenders, and processing coverage concepts in real time. His internal clock is already calibrated to NFL speed, knowing exactly when to release the ball to avoid pressure while giving receivers time to create separation. The mental toughness component cannot be overstated. After day one's criticism, a lesser quarterback might have pressed, trying to force throws to prove doubters wrong. Instead, Shedeur remained patient, took what the defense gave him, and executed with surgical precision. That kind of emotional regulation under scrutiny is rare in veterans, let alone rookies. His mechanics tell the story of countless hours of dedicated preparation. The footwork is compact and efficient, with no wasted motion. His arm slot remains consistent regardless of pressure or platform, indicating muscle memory developed through repetition. Most impressively, his play-action fakes are already NFL caliber, selling handoffs so convincingly that even experienced defenders bite on the deception. These intangibles, leadership, football IQ, mental toughness, and technical precision, cannot be taught in a classroom or developed overnight. They're the product of years of high-level competition and an innate understanding of what it takes to succeed at quarterback. Shedeur possesses all of them at an elite level. But despite demonstrating these rare qualities consistently, Shedeur continues to face a level of scrutiny that his peers simply don't encounter, which exposes a troubling double standard in how the NFL media evaluates young quarterbacks. When Shedeur struggles, it's breaking news. When he dominates, it's radio silence. That glaring inconsistency reveals a media bias that has nothing to do with football and everything to do with narrative control. The disparity in coverage isn't accidental, it's systematic. Understanding this bias is crucial because it shapes public perception, influences coaching decisions, and ultimately affects a young quarterback's career trajectory before he's even given a fair chance to succeed. Let's examine the evidence objectively. When Kenny Pickett, a veteran with multiple NFL seasons under his belt, has an off day in practice, the coverage is measured and contextual. Headlines read Pickett working through timing issues or veteran quarterback shaking off rust. The narrative assumes competence and frames struggles as temporary setbacks rather than character flaws. When Joe Flacco, a Super Bowl winner with over a decade of NFL experience, throws incomplete passes or makes poor decisions, it's dismissed as veteran rest day or managing his arm in camp. The benefit of doubt is automatic and unquestioned. But when Shedeur Sanders, a rookie quarterback still learning a new system with unfamiliar receivers, has any imperfection in his performance, the coverage becomes inflammatory and definitive. Sanders' struggles in debut becomes the headline, with no mention of context, circumstances, or the learning curve that every rookie faces. The most damning evidence of this double standard came on day 2. Shedeur's perfect 4-for-4 performance, which included throws that demonstrated elite arm talent, field vision, and decision-making, received virtually no national coverage. The same media outlets that had amplified his day 1 struggles suddenly found other stories to pursue. This isn't journalism, it's agenda-driven narrative construction. The pattern is unmistakable: amplify the negatives, minimize the positives, and maintain a predetermined storyline regardless of what actually happens on the field. Social media analytics tell the complete story. Tweets about Shedeur's day 1 performance generated thousands of retweets and comments, with major sports accounts pushing the struggling rookie narrative. But posts about his flawless day 2 performance received minimal engagement from the same accounts, despite being objectively more newsworthy. The disparity extends beyond social media. National sports shows that dedicated entire segments to analyzing his incomplete passes barely mentioned his perfect follow-up performance. Radio hosts who questioned his readiness for the NFL suddenly had nothing to say when he demonstrated exactly the qualities they claimed he lacked. This bias isn't just unfair, it's counterproductive to accurate football analysis. When media coverage is driven by predetermined narratives rather than objective evaluation, fans receive incomplete information, and young players face unnecessary pressure that can impact their development. But here's what the biased coverage can't change: performance on the field ultimately determines playing time, not media narratives. And Shedeur's performance is already forcing coaches to reconsider their depth chart assumptions. Depth charts are suggestions, not gospel. And when talent this obvious starts making statements on the practice field, even the most conservative coaching staffs have to adapt or risk looking foolish. The current Browns depth chart lists Shedeur as QB4, behind Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. On paper, that hierarchy makes sense: veterans first, rookies earn their way up. But football isn't played on paper, and performance has a way of reshuffling even the most established pecking orders. History is littered with examples of rookies who were supposed to sit and learn but forced their way into starting roles through undeniable performance. Tom Brady was fourth on the Patriots depth chart when Drew Bledsoe got injured. Aaron Rodgers wasn't supposed to start for years behind Brett Favre. Russell Wilson was a third-round pick competing with veteran Matt Flynn. The common thread in all these stories isn't luck or circumstance, it's performance that becomes impossible to ignore. When a player consistently demonstrates superior ability, coaches face a simple choice: adapt the depth chart to reflect reality or explain to ownership why they're not playing their best players. Shedeur's Day 2 performance created exactly this type of pressure. For perfect throws against legitimate NFL competition, demonstrating arm strength, accuracy, and decision-making that surpass what the veterans showed in similar situations. Coaches noticed. Front office executives noticed. Most importantly, teammates noticed. The ripple effects are already visible. Practice reps are the currency of development, and players who perform earn more opportunities to showcase their abilities. Shedeur's flawless execution has earned him additional looks in different packages and situations. Each successful rep builds momentum for more significant opportunities. Fan pressure also influences coaching decisions more than most people realize. When highlight reels of Shedeur's perfect throws start circulating on social media while the veteran quarterbacks struggle with consistency, the noise becomes impossible to ignore. Season ticket holders don't want to watch inferior players when superior talent is available. The Browns' investment in Shedeur, draft capital, coaching resources, and roster construction indicates they view him as more than a developmental project. Organizations don't spend significant resources on players they plan to keep buried on depth charts indefinitely. Locker room dynamics also play a crucial role. When teammates publicly praise a player's work ethic and performance, it signals that the room is ready for change. Veteran players want to win games, and they'll support whoever gives them the best chance to succeed, regardless of experience level. Depth charts reflect current thinking, not permanent reality. Performance changes everything, and Shedeur's consistent excellence is already reshaping how coaches view the quarterback competition. The question isn't whether he'll move up the depth chart, it's how quickly it will happen. Which brings us to the inevitable reality that every Browns fan should prepare for. Shedeur Sanders taking first-team reps isn't a matter of if, but when. And when that moment arrives, the entire NFL landscape will shift. The path to first-team reps isn't paved with patience, it's carved through undeniable performance that forces coaches to make the obvious decision. Every minute Shedeur spends working with backup receivers and second-string offensive lines is a minute lost in evaluating what he can accomplish with the Browns' top weapons. Coaches understand this reality, even if they're not ready to admit it publicly. Imagine those same perfect throws from Day 2, but delivered to Amari Cooper running precise routes with perfect timing. Picture those anticipation reads connecting with David Njoku, who understands leverage and can create separation against elite defenders. Envision that mobility and arm talent protected by a first-team offensive line that actually knows their assignments and can give him clean pockets to operate from. The mathematical reality is simple. If Shedeur can achieve perfection with limited resources, his ceiling with elite weapons becomes stratospheric. Coaches aren't blind to this equation. They see the same film, analyze the same throws, and recognize the same potential that's becoming impossible to ignore. The organizational pressure is mounting from multiple directions. The front office invested significant draft capital in Shedeur, viewing him as a cornerstone piece for the franchise's future. That investment comes with expectations for development and evaluation, which requires meaningful reps against quality competition. Fan engagement provides another compelling factor. Social media buzz around Shedeur's performances generates excitement and ticket sales in ways that veteran quarterback struggles simply cannot match. The Browns organization understands that entertainment value and winning potential often align, especially when a young quarterback demonstrates both skill and charisma. Locker room dynamics accelerate this timeline significantly. When veteran players start praising a rookie's work ethic and performance, it signals readiness for increased responsibility. Teammates want to win games, and they'll advocate for whoever gives them the best chance to succeed, regardless of experience level or depth chart position. The coaching staff's body language during Shedeur's perfect Day 2 performance told the complete story. Position coaches were taking notes, coordinators were having sidebar conversations, and head coach Kevin Stefanski was paying closer attention to the rookie's reps than the veterans' work. Practice squad promotions and roster construction also provide clues about organizational thinking. When teams start surrounding a quarterback with better weapons and protection, it indicates preparation for expanded roles. The Browns' recent moves suggest they're already thinking about maximizing Shedeur's development opportunities. First-team reps aren't a reward for potential, they're a necessity for evaluation. The Browns need to know what they have in Shedeur Sanders, and that assessment requires him to work with the players he'll actually be throwing to in games that matter. All of which leads to the ultimate conclusion that Browns fans and NFL observers need to accept. Shedeur Sanders' rise to prominence isn't just likely, it's unstoppable. The only question is whether you'll recognize it before it becomes obvious to everyone else. This isn't a prediction or hopeful thinking, this is pattern recognition. Every indicator points to the same inevitable conclusion: Shedeur Sanders will not be denied. Throughout NFL history, certain players possess an undeniable combination of talent, work ethic, and mental toughness that transcends circumstances, coaching changes, and media narratives. Shedeur Sanders has demonstrated all these qualities in just 2 days of practice, providing a preview of what's coming for the rest of the league. The evidence is overwhelming and multifaceted. His technical skills, arm strength, accuracy, footwork, and release are already at NFL starter level. His football IQ, demonstrated through pre-snap reads and post-snap adjustments, rivals veterans with years of experience. His leadership qualities, evident in how teammates respond to his presence, indicate natural command that cannot be taught. But beyond the measurable skills lies something more powerful, an unshakable belief in his own abilities combined with the work ethic to back up that confidence. When faced with criticism after day 1, Shedeur didn't make excuses or point fingers. He simply returned the next day and delivered perfection. That response pattern, adversity met with elevated performance, is the hallmark of elite competitors. The organizational momentum is building rapidly. Front office executives who invested in Shedeur are eager to see their evaluation validated. Coaches who stake their reputations on player development want to showcase their prized pupil. Marketing departments recognize the excitement and revenue potential of a dynamic young quarterback leading the franchise. Fan engagement provides additional fuel for this momentum. Highlight reels of Shedeur's perfect throws generate more social media interaction than veteran quarterback struggles. Jersey sales, ticket purchases, and television ratings all benefit when exciting young talent gets opportunities to shine on the biggest stages. The competitive landscape also favors Shedeur's rapid ascension. The Browns' veteran quarterbacks, while experienced, haven't demonstrated the consistency or upside that organizational success requires. When a rookie outperforms established players in direct competition, the choice becomes obvious regardless of experience levels or salary considerations. Historical precedent supports this trajectory. Every successful NFL franchise eventually transitions from veteran placeholders to franchise quarterbacks who can lead for a decade or more. The Browns' investment in Shedeur indicates they believe he represents that long-term solution. The media attention, despite its bias, also accelerates this timeline. National coverage of Shedeur's performances, both positive and negative, keeps him in the spotlight and creates pressure for increased opportunities. Visibility breeds opportunity in the NFL, especially for players who consistently deliver when given chances. Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting for permission to succeed, he's creating his own opportunities through undeniable performance. Every perfect throw, every leadership moment, every demonstration of elite quarterback traits builds momentum that becomes impossible to ignore. The narrative has already shifted from "Can Shedeur succeed?" to "When will Shedeur take over?" That transformation happened in just 48 hours, providing a preview of how quickly things can change when talent meets opportunity. Here's what we've uncovered in this deep dive. Day 1's 3-for-8 performance was a manufactured crisis, stripped of context and weaponized by critics who were already sharpening their knives. Day 2's perfect 4-for-4 response was a statement that should have rewritten every headline in America but was largely ignored by the same media that amplified his struggles. We've seen the elite intangibles, leadership, football IQ, mental toughness, that separate franchise quarterbacks from career backups. We've exposed the glaring double standards in NFL coverage that give veterans the benefit of doubt while scrutinizing rookies under a microscope. We've explained why depth charts are fluid documents that change based on performance, not seniority. Most importantly, we've established why Shedeur Sanders' rise to prominence isn't just probable, it's inevitable. The combination of elite skills, unshakable confidence, and organizational investment creates momentum that becomes unstoppable. The Browns have their franchise quarterback. The only question is whether the coaching staff will recognize it before the rest of the NFL does. Based on what we've seen in just 2 days, that recognition is coming sooner than anyone expected. Don't blink! Shedeur Sanders is just getting started, and what you've witnessed is only the beginning of a story that will dominate NFL headlines for the next decade. Now I want to hear from you. Have you been following Shedeur's journey from Colorado to Cleveland? What impressed you most about his Day 2 performance? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on when he'll get his first team reps. And remember, I'm giving away 4 Shedeur Sanders jerseys on August 21st. Every comment saying "I've made it this far" counts as an entry. The more you engage, the better your chances of winning. If this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening in Cleveland, smash that like button and subscribe for more in-depth NFL analysis that goes beyond the headlines. I'll see you tomorrow with more football updates that the mainstream media won't tell you. This is the NFL Report, and remember, the truth is always worth the wait.